My question is, with the understanding of what you spoke to regarding our being hardwired not to suffer, yet doing what we can to suffer, before habit or the pattern of habit, at the point of pain or trauma or a root challenge or even shock, why does one move into and perfect the illusion of separation and dissociate and choose suffering rather than instinctively moving or being drawn to the refuge of that which is, that which we already are, which is true nature?
Yeah. Can I ask you a question before I give you my response?
Yes,
Where does the question come from for you?
Inquiry into the nature of suffering.
Yeah.
And that you speak directly to this. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, I'm going to give you my response on the air. I thank you. It's a great question, by the way. Really well stated.
And thank you for all your teachings. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Okay, Samana, thanks. The question, basically, why do we suffer? But it's more, he stated it in a much more clear way than that. But, given the various experiences we all have in life, why is it that we often, interpret those experiences and go through those experiences in such a way that they create trauma or suffering in our being, in our body, in our emotions, in our mind? Why does it happen that way? Because it can happen in different ways, right? It's not written in stone that it has to happen. The more conscious we are, the more difficult experiences we can go through without them really leaving a trace, a mark, a scar. Why doesn't it just start out that way? Well, I would suggest that the reason ultimately has to do with consciousness. And what I mean by that is this. As we grow up, if everything goes right, but as we grow up, basically, our consciousness is growing up with us too. And our capacity to literally embody greater and greater, more and more challenging experiences grows as our consciousness grows. Now, if we experience something that's bigger than our consciousness can embody, in other words, if we start to go in some way unconscious because it's too big, it's too challenging, it's too overwhelming, we're literally developmentally not ready yet for that experience. And that can happen young in life. You can have these experiences at 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. At any age, you can experience things that you just don't feel that you're ready to embody in such a way that you don't go into unconsciousness, into resistance, into denial, right? So when we're not developed in our consciousness enough to embody a given experience, then it's that unresolvedness. It stops the experience. It freezes it within our experience. It freezes it within our body. It freezes it within our emotional body. It freezes it within our mind. So we'll make certain intellectual conclusions based on the experience. That is freezing the experience. As soon as you make sort of an intellectual conclusion about your experience, a difficult experience, that conclusion is freezing the experience in your system. Same thing happens emotionally. So you feel that freezing emotionally. The pain just continues and continues for years, decades after the event happened, right? So why does this happen? I think part of it is just sort of developmentally. We're just not there yet. Our consciousness is not clear enough, is not big enough, is not vast enough, is not realized enough to embody whatever experience is. When the experience is bigger than our capacity to embody it, then the experience in some ways gets stuck, gets trapped. It freezes within our system. It freezes, as I said, on the gross physical level, on the emotional level, and the intellectual level. Usually all three at the same time. I mean, it would be nice if this wasn't this way, but we all do develop over a lifetime. And spirituality is really, much of it is one of the nice fringe benefits of it, if it goes well, is that as you awaken to more and more and more of the truth of your being, your capacity to embody, to fully be present for greater and greater, more and more challenging experiences, it grows and grows and grows. That's part of what being more and more conscious is all about, more and more awake is about. Your ability to embody greater and greater experiences grows so that those experiences find a completion through you instead of get stuck in you. There's an old Zen phrase that enlightened action leaves no trace. I would also say enlightened experience, when you experience something fully and completely and openly, with in no way going unconscious, then that experience runs through you. It runs clean. Even if it's very difficult, it can run clean through you. You know, the next day or the next week, it's gone. You can remember it, but it has no emotional imprint, right? And so everyone's experienced this. Everyone's had certain difficult experiences that left no imprint because you were, in your consciousness, you were big enough, you were vast enough to embody it, to hold it within your experience without going unconscious. So now you might remember it as a difficult moment, but you don't feel the difficulty in the present moment. That's because you were big enough. And we all have, huge... It's why when your happiness doesn't tend to get stuck in your... You may want happiness to get stuck in your system, so you're just unavoidably happy all the time. But happiness, its nature is flow. Happiness is there in direct proportion to how much we flow as human beings, as our consciousness does not get stagnant or grasping or afraid. And this is why the best moments in your life, you can remember them, but you don't get stuck in them because you just embody them in the moment. It was so easy, and you just remember it as something pleasant and wonderful, but you don't feel trapped or confined by it, right? And that's why. So a lot of this is just development. And don't think by development I just mean our age, because we can be 10 years old and be spiritually very mature, and we can be 80 years old and spiritually be very immature, and vice versa. So it's part of it has to do with our biological age, and there's a part of it that's even beyond that. That's like I said, almost sort of a deeper sense of spiritual maturity, right? The beautiful thing is, as your capacity grows, that you can experience or re-experience back to the shadow that I talked about, that at some point or another, as your capacity to embody greater experience widens, grows, at some point those shadow elements that you're now able to embody will show up in your experience. And it'll often be surprising because at that point you will have thought they were all gone, that you were beyond them all. But most people go through this phase that when they're ready, when they're quite clear, they'll often get these last vestiges of sort of the bottom of their dark shadow consciousness just gets scraped off, and comes into the light of their awareness, because it's also seeking to be embodied and therefore freed. You cannot free anything you're not willing to embody. You cannot free anything that you're not willing to embody. Embody means to fully experience, to be completely present for. When you're capable and willing to embody something, then it can flow through you. It can release. It can release through your mind, in the sense of you change your mind, change your ideas. It can release through your emotions. So your emotional body's freed up. It can release from your physical body.